Hello everyone and welcome to our discussion on the adaptive lawyer. My name is Giles Proctor. I'm the CEO of the College of Legal Practice, and for this discussion I'm drawing on my experience of many years of designing and developing courses for legal service providers, as well as educating undergraduate and postgraduate lawyers in their training. I had hoped to give this discussion at Legalex, but hopefully this recording will help share some of the ideas I've got about training, and in particular training through technology for the next generation of young lawyers. And I suppose for this particular presentation, I've got two effective focuses. The first one is referencing those legal professionals, not just trainee lawyers on the graduate route, but also anyone who's coming into our profession at a paralegal or legal executive level, who needs to develop their training. And secondly, I think we've got to look at the context of the current regulatory change. In other words, how is that driving our change in designing training programs? And of course, using for that purpose technology. And what are the advantages and disadvantages of using technology for doing that? So let's just think first of all about where we are, the context of the current training regime. At the moment, we have a regime basically based on a long-established legal practice course, entry-level training. Legal practice course takes about 6,000 students a year, and on that course, it has a fairly fixed syllabus, which gives the students a basic training in practice areas such as business law, property law, civil and criminal litigation, but also looks at the procedure of those particular areas and subjects, and also wraps around those skills. Now, that's useful for employers, because they have a set syllabus, which means they know at what level those students are coming in to their law firms or organizations. And they know that they have the practical basics in the practice areas and procedures which they can build on. In particular, employers may also know that those students from the LPC course have undertaken certain options. In other words, looked at certain areas of practice in more detail, anything from employment law to corporate acquisitions to family law. And therefore, they have a commonality of understanding of what those new trainees or new entrants into the organisation are able to take on and do. However, that system is changing. The LPC at the moment from September 2021 is being replaced by a system of solicitors qualification examinations. That's effectively 2 gateway assessments, many of which elements will be assessed online. And of course, being an assessment, will be focused on by those trying to get through it as simply an assessment. Therefore, there is no requirement for those students to effectively do any other courses around preparing to pass these 2 assessments, in particular developing those skills and that knowledge that might help them in their future career as a lawyer rather than simply pass an exam. And therefore we have the makings of a potential training gap. Those candidates for SQE focusing on passing the assessment may not actually undergo the sort of training in basic practice and procedure that the LPC has provided to date. And therefore, we'll be looking at providing training to fill that gap, wraparound training that focuses on developing skills and technical competencies for the future lawyer, rather than, as I say, simply getting them through an exam. So how do we address that gap? And how do you address actually the need for up-to-date training to bring this next generation of lawyers on? Well, I think it's worthwhile looking at the role of technologies in all this. And I'm going to take 3 particular points and explore them in this discussion. First of all, the role of technologies in actually the design of the training. The first principle, of course, is always you have to think about the role of technology from the beginning of your design. It's actually much more difficult to retrofit the use of technologies into an established training course. So we need to think about the different ways we can use technology as vehicles for delivery of our material. We can simply use this as a form of knowledge transfer, be it by blog or vlog or video or other IT delivery modes such as this one we're using today, Zoom. However, technology can be interactive. We know that there's the use of Mentimeter, where you can effectively obtain opinions and views from your audience in real time. You can use quiz style training. You can use online fora in which you can have discussions as you go through a piece of training. And of course, we all have the hosting technologies to hand, learning management systems such as Google Docs and SharePoints, where actually during the training, you can host documentation that students can interact with. Now, this sort of role of technology is very much a fundamental delivery mechanism. It's part of the design, and you'll use it depending on the shape of your design and the requirements of the cohort you're designing. The second discussion point, I think, is, well, what level of training in understanding technology do young lawyers need? So what is the subject matter that our young lawyers should be taking on board? What's the baseline that they need? Now, it's very clear there are probably three areas of focus. First of all, we should be avoiding the tendency to think that young lawyers need to learn an awful lot about computer systems and coding and particular types of software. It's more likely that we should focus on what is essential for their practice. So, first of all, understanding the information tools, such as Outlook, for example, that they might use in their daily lives. Understanding the knowledge management tools that they are using in terms of their online research and all the other work they do in their office place. And also understanding the comms tools that they're using and things like Excel spreadsheets. So if you can ensure that your legal young lawyers have that basic training in those systems, then they are going to be using technology and being able to use it quite well. I suppose the second focus is that young lawyers should be thinking about what the clients are actually using and understanding that. So whether it's blockchain, whether it's some form of edtech or regtech system, focusing on being close to your client means understanding for those young lawyers how the client is using technology and actually how they, as assisting the client as client advisors, can actually work with that technology as well. And I think the third point about the role of technology training for lawyers is it's about giving them a mindset that they understand that technology is part of their service to the client. It's part of their lives as lawyers in an office, and therefore they need to be able to understand and take on board the rapid changes that are happening in technology. So it's as much about fostering a mindset as about fostering some knowledge about a particular system or software. The third and final discussion point, I think, about the role of technology is understanding its use in delivering effective and measurable training. Because technologies, if they're delivering training for you, can actually allow you to have activities that allow for participants to get feedback as they go through the activity, either immediately as they're progressing through the module or on any outputs they might produce as a result of the training. So whether it's a draft agreement, whether it's a set of proposals, whether it's a business analysis case, you can actually, if you run that via technology, virtual training programs, you can actually pick up on the way through on various metrics and things you would want to measure your trainees by. The advantage for the trainer of using these technology-driven modules is that you are able to give objective feedback. You're able to use the metrics from the training to evidence your feedback, and therefore you can develop, that's the use of the word iterative feedback, you can give developmental feedback to individual young lawyers as they're developing their skills. And also, if you have technology-based modules which allow for metrics and feedback to be fed through to you as the trainer, then you're able to actually feed that into your longer term planning. And you're thinking about how are we meeting needs? How are we meeting our own competency frameworks? And where is the training falling short? Where is our training actually not meeting the needs of our young lawyers? Now, those three areas about technology as a deliverer, technology as a subject matter for young lawyers, technology as a source of metrics and measurable feedback. Of course, We have to remember that technology is not the whole answer. It is part of a very effective training system. And that if you're looking for networking opportunities rather than technologies, then what you're going to be thinking about is a much more traditional training session where you have 20 people in a room and you have some form of presentation or interactive workshop. I think that you've got to be very careful in terms of working with your cohorts who you're training to understand exactly what their needs are, and also not to lose sight of those basic metrics of cost and time that you have available, what spaces do you have available, and personnel. One of the great things about technologically driven modules is you can deliver them beyond the physical space that you might normally conduct your training in. Most importantly, what are your outputs? What are you seeking to get from the training? You need to deal with that first and then work back in your design to see how technology might enhance that. You must also look at what is actually happening in universities. When I talk about current training for future lawyers, a lot of university law schools are using technology, and it would be worth having a discussion with your local law school, local representative from one of the large training providers, to see how young lawyers are using technology before they come to you, should they be going through, for example, an undergraduate law degree. My final point, I suppose, is to summarize that with today's lawyer, you have to foster that ability, that mindset to be adaptive. Now, technology therefore can be extremely useful for that. It can be used for knowledge or know-how transfer, as we've discussed. You may use the podcast or the interactive quiz as a quick and easy way of substituting for the lecture or the lunchtime discussion. Technology is a great use for skills development. It allows you to design and deliver modules that allow the learner to repeat and practice the practitioner and technical skills in writing, in drafting, in technical analysis, subject matter. And that's really driven by the classic approach of Kolb, which is learning by doing, experiential learning. The great thing also about having a technology-based delivery of training is that you have metrics. You can know how it is working, how it is delivering in terms of measurables, in terms of competencies. It allows you to have a much more informed feedback and mentoring mechanism. It allows you to design your training to the actual needs of your cohort, rather than perhaps a perceived need for some information to be delivered and very little skills behind that. Also, if you're going to design technology-based training, you are giving your young lawyers access to the same training experience. Everyone gets the same experience. There is flexibility as to how they progress through that experience, obviously based on your own arrangements in the office. And as to location, this can be done on-site, off-site, really at any time of your and their choosing. So, I hope that's been useful. If you have any questions, please let's continue the discussion on my email, gproctor@collegelegalpractice.com. Very happy to discuss anything arising out of this presentation, and obviously to discuss further the role of technology in delivering training for the adaptive lawyer. Thank you.